How's it going, guys? Taylor and Kyle here, back with another coffee break in honor of Fly Tying Month. We are going to discuss the age-old debate of tying versus buying. We'll kind of talk about the pros and cons of each one, when we find it useful to do one or the other. That way it can hopefully help you guys make a decision to, enjoy our hobby a little bit more. So, Kyle, why don't you start us out here?
Yeah, hi, my name's Kyle. I'm shop manager here at AvidMax. I started tying flies at a pretty young age, got into it. Really wasn't dedicated like I am now. Had a lot more time on my hands. Now I'm finding myself not having a ton of more time on my hands, but I'm still trying to find ways to tie it because I absolutely love the hobby. It's just very rewarding when you're able to tie a fly and actually go out to the water and land fish on that fly. That's the main reason why I keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Can you relate to that a little bit, Taylor?
Oh, for sure. Kind of like you, I started out relatively young. I remember my dad trying to teach me how, and started out tying like zebra midges and, of course, woolly buggers. And going out as a kid and catching a fish on a fly you tied. You're just
pretty rewarding.
Yeah, you're over the moon. There's
rewarding.
Nothing better. And the nice thing is, I don't think that ever really goes away. Both of us are relatively seasoned anglers now, and I've never lost that appeal. So
no, but for some people, definitely time, cost, all those come into play too.
Yep.
Anytime you jump into a new hobby, it can be a little scary.
Yeah, that barrier of entry.
Not knowing where to start.
Yeah, it can be a little daunting. So
going back to the whole time thing. You definitely have to put time behind the vise to become successful with the hobby, for sure.
For sure, yeah.
And not a lot of people have that time with kids. If you have a spouse at home, or if you're just on the go all the time and you don't really have time to sit behind a vise.
Yeah.
That's where kind of buying would be more efficient for you.
Yeah, and you said it earlier, you don't have the time now that you used to have. I relate to that so much. I used to spend every night behind the vise, tying and just planning for the weekend, thinking of everything I can come up with, and now life gets in the way. You have obligations, and I find myself buying a little more than, I was in the past, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but...
Yeah, and to your point there too, there'll be times too, where you have a spur of the moment trip that pops up. You have a friend or someone gives you a shout saying, "Hey, let's go to the river," and you find time to actually get ready to go, but you don't have the flies that are on the river report or something that works there well. Sometimes it can be a size, sometimes obviously a different pattern, but that's where buying kind of like I tend to buy. I find myself buying those flies for that for that day. Yeah. Because I don't have the time. And
for sure.
I'm, by the time we get off work here, you don't have a ton of time to sit down behind the vise and tie. So buying flies, I still do it too. I'm not a huge fan of tying dry flies. So I find me buying dry flies is definitely time saving.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of in the same boat with dries. It's a skill that I haven't mastered, and to be honest, don't really want to spend the time mastering, so it's easier for me to buy. Because also I know that anything I buy will look a heck of a lot better than anything I try to tie. So definitely relate to that.
For sure. And then the other thing about it is too customization. I mean, that's where the artistic part of this whole hobby journey goes into play. You're able to design something that is unique. And obviously, want to kind of keep it natural. We get a lot of dudes that or women that come in the shop here, and they definitely get excited about tying, and they see the loud colored stuff hanging on the wall, and they kind of want to go. But you definitely kind of want to keep stuff natural. That's the biggest thing I can tell people for new tires out there.
Yeah, for starting out, kind of. I mean, there's the side of exploring the hobby how you want and tying whatever you want.
Yeah.
There are people that enjoy tying and not fishing at all. They just like you said, see the artistic side of it.
And we have customers like
yeah.
that come in the shop. I mean, there's people that tie for their husbands or vice versa for their wife. They enjoy the tying more than the fishing. So
yeah, but like you said, I think if you do want to fish your flies right away, definitely sticking to that natural approach will probably pay off.
For sure.
There's the saying of like beginners hare's ears catch more fish than professional hare's ears because, you know, they're meant to look imperfect. It just makes them look more buggy and more attractive. So, but in that sense, to the customization, you know, there aren't many companies that have bright orange flies, bright orange materials. If you get the urge to tie that, and for whatever reason you see something in the river that makes you want to tie that,
for sure,
you can buy whatever color you want.
And like I think it's really cool too to take other tires like patterns that they've tied and kind of put your own tweaks to them. You know, see what you can kind of come up with. You know, there's a foundation for every fly out there, really. And it gives there's great resources out there to kind of get you started in that, and the sky's the limit, really.
For sure. Yeah. So I think customization might be the biggest reason that season tires stay inside the hobby. It just keeps the hobby new and exciting. And just,
There's a lot, and you know, the other thing is too, not every pattern you see out there is going to be commercially tied. So therefore, you know, you're kind of in that, you know, area where you need to find someone to tie it, or you're going to have to kind of sit down behind the vise and kind of tie that bug. Some great signature patterns, though, absolutely. There's all sorts of, but there's some really unique ones out there that, you know, definitely catch my eye.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our Tying Tuesday videos, the vast majority are not commercially produced patterns. So, like you said, you have no choice but to tie them.
Exactly. So, you know, the other thing is too cost. We can get into cost here a little bit.
Maybe the biggest misconception with the whole buying versus tying debate.
The biggest thing I hear a lot, people coming in the shop, well, am I going to save money by tying than buying? Really, no, you're not. You're going to find yourself wanting to collect a bunch of materials, okay? I know there's numerous dudes come in the shop. They want to collect every single material in every color to kind of get a stash going. And that's great. You know, like I do that myself. I buy materials. I want to be able to, like, if I see a pattern, I want to be able to, like, just get up from what I'm doing on the spur of the moment and go tie that fly. That's kind of where cost comes into play. I mean, you know, hooks and stuff, it all varies. You know, sometimes you want to tie a 22, sometimes you want to tie on a size 2. That all costs money. So something to definitely think about. You know, for getting into it though, there's a ton of like reliable, cost-effectively tools, vices, all sorts of materials that can really get you going and really get you started.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to go out and spend $1,000 on a vise right away, or, you know, $200 on tools. So hopefully that barrier of entry doesn't need to be as big as it might appear. And depending on what you tie, if you are going to only tie thread midges and use 4 or 5 materials, there's a point where it's not as costly as I think you and I have made it. But to your point, I don't even know how many hundreds, if not thousands of dollars I have in materials that have yet to become flies, that are just kind of sitting there. But, you know, we will eventually use, just kind of playing around with it. But it can be more expensive than people make it out to be when they first get it.
And you know, everyone, like, back to the cost for as far as buying goes, you are getting what you pay for. You know, all these flies that we do sell, that any shop sells, are all going to be hand tied. So, you know, they do mark it up a little bit, but, you know, like if you like we were stating earlier, you know, if you don't like to tie a certain pattern, those patterns are available for you to buy, which makes it very easy.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, also for beginners out there too, I can't stress enough, like, start small, okay? What I mean by that,
what I mean by that is,
don't go out and buy yourself a bunch of materials.
Oh yes.
Okay? Don't just
Yeah.
don't just go buy a ton of materials and then you get home and you're kind of lost. I would stick with like a pattern.
Yep.
Buy a pack of hooks. Maybe tie all those hooks into one pattern.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find out that you're gonna get better and better with each tie.
Yeah.
And the ones that you started with, just give to your friends.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Let them
They'll still fit.
Yeah. Also, kind of in that same breath, like start with materials that are super common in a bunch of patterns, like pheasant tail. I mean, you get one package of pheasant tail and you can use it in 20, 30 different patterns.
Absolutely.
So there are definitely versatile materials. Bucktail, hare's ear. Those are like the beginning standards. If you tie those,
sure.
you can use them across a bunch of different ones.
sure.
You're not going to waste your money.
For sure.
So, yeah.
For sure. Something that's cool about, with tying as well, definitely a pro would be, matching the hatch. So, there's a lot of patterns that you'll pull out of the river or, bugs that you're seeing, like you're sanding a net or whatever, and you're finding patterns in there that don't really match in your box. Well, that gives you an idea of kind of something that you maybe want to spin up a little bit,
Yeah, exactly. Kind of increases the entomology
exactly.
Skills. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you definitely learn way more about bugs than I think you would ever learn if you didn't try to tie flies. I don't know how many times I've pulled up a picture on my phone, set it next to my vise, and I'm trying to match that
yeah,
as
absolutely.
I'm tying something. So
for sure.
Something cool. So,
yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, how many times have you looked at a bug and it's like, I want to make something better, and then you just start
for sure
going crazy with materials, and that's how you get bright neon orange bucktail
no doubt.
and all sorts of crazy color flash that you'd never see in the wild. So.
For sure. And we have a really great video too. Brady had put together.
Yep.
Brady had to put together. It's called the Tying 101 video. Kind of goes between the levels of like vices, tools, accessories that you need to kind of get started in it. It's a must watch for sure. It gives you an idea of like everyone's mentality is like, well, fly tying is super expensive. It really doesn't have to be that way. I mean, yes, the materials are going to add up and everything, but for you to get started in the hobby, it doesn't take a lot. So.
Yeah.
More or less just time. Make sure you have the time. Make sure you put the time in behind the vise to be successful.
Yeah. I think for the vast majority of the people out there that do start tying flies, I think both of us are great examples. Like the bug, it bites you and you just can't put it down.
You get pretty addicted.
Yeah. I don't know how much time we've spent in the shop just like, Googling over different materials.
For sure.
Like, oh man, this back looks so good.
And there's a lot of people out there like in the wintertime, like that's kind of an off season for the fly fishing community in a way.
In terms of like getting on the water.
With everything frozen up in the high country, you don't really have, and lakes being frozen, you don't really have a lot of opportunities to get out on the water. And when you do, you're going to be dealing with people. So, that is no better time than to tie flies, really.
Exactly.
I mean, I catch myself tying a ton of flies during the winter to
you can
get myself stocked up for like the spring, early summer months. So.
Yeah, you can still stay involved in the hobby, even though it might not be prime season. So another great reason to tie.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I think we kind of covered a lot of it. So hopefully this helped you guys kind of figure out what might be the right path for you. And if you decide to, I guess no matter what way you decide, whether it's tying or buying, feel free to check out our website. We have, I don't even know how many, 30,000 SKUs of
There's
products.
A lot back there.
Yeah, and the vast majority are tying materials. So,
and you can also come see me in the shop too. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Give us a ring.
Talk shop. Come in. I'm more than happy to teach you a few things as well. But
if we forgot anything, leave it in the comments. We love to keep the discussion going. Kind of leave tips for anybody else who might be looking to get into the hobby. So,
right on. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. We'll see you guys on the next one.